My name is Beto Navarro, and welcome to Friends of Figma Miami. So we are, a small group. We're three right now that we're trying to do this for the community, especially. And this started like really small, like in the middle of the pandemic. And this is actually our second in-person event. In the pandemic was everything like remotely online. So very excited to have this actually seeing people's faces in real life. So yeah, and Jackie, there you go. So this is a safe space. So if you're a career transitioner, early career, or a seasoned, UX product designer, everyone is welcome. This is like very inclusive. Feel free to reach us if anything. You have questions at the end, and keep following us for other events. We usually do this quarterly, so that's more or less the time frame of the events. So it's not that we're doing this every month. Because we're not getting paid. This is for the love of design that we do this. So, but yeah, we're happy that we are trying to make this space for you guys. So, as I said before, I'm Beto Navarro. I'm currently a senior product designer at Amazon, and I have been here for 2 years. And my background is graphic design. So, if anyone had that career pivot, I did that like 7 years ago. So I pivoted my career from graphic design to UX, and now I'm in Amazon. So that's me. Jonathan, if you want to go ahead and present yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan. I am, well, I guess I'll go up there. Originally from Colombia, but I came to the States when I was super young. So I'm like more American than Colombian. But I started graphic design myself too. And I made that transition when I moved to California. I spent around 6 years in California, where I jumped into product. I worked for different companies, and now I'm at DocuSign. So I lead the mobile design team at DocuSign. So now I'm managing a team, which is awesome. And at the same time, I get to work remotely. So I work from here. I get to travel to San Francisco sometimes. And I actually met Beto and Jackie when I moved from California. I reached out to them like, hey, I would love to be part of this community. How do I get involved? And here we are. So super excited to be here, and thank you for being here once again. So, and I'll let Jackie introduce herself.
Hey guys, how are you? My name is Jackie. Sou brasileira. Nice to meet you all. Just like my friends Beto and Jonathan, I also come from a graphic design background. So I've been designing for many years, first in California. I was for 10 years in California, in Santa Barbara, California, SB, And then I moved to Miami. In 2019, I decided to jump to product design. So just like you guys, I joined the bootcamp. Beto was one of my mentors. He was alone, actually running the Friends of Figma chapter in Miami. He reached out to me, he's like, hey Jackie, you want to join the group and do some cool things for the UX community? I said, yes, absolutely. So here I am. Right after bootcamp, I got a job with GE, working as a product designer with customer-facing software. So I love building software, that's what I do now. Pretty soon I'm going to be introducing you a friend of mine, Melany, who's a speaker tonight. I actually got a chance to work together at GE for a while before she moved on to her next project. But yes, super happy to have you guys all here. It's awesome to see the community together. Thank you for making time this Monday night to come over and be here and make South Florida strong when it comes to product design. Thank you.
So if you don't know, Friends of Figma is a big, humongous group worldwide. There are a lot of groups, 200 the last time that I stopped counting. Actually, I just learned today that we have someone from Buenos Aires chapter. So that was cool to hear. So yeah, Jordi, stand up, say hi. So he just moved to Miami, so welcome. Probably he can join us as well. So he has experience in the Buenos Aires Friends of Figma. So you can follow us on Miami. We are all over in social media. That's how you get to know about our events. If you sign up for the group, of course, you will get emails when events are coming up. So that's a way, best way for you guys to learn about these things that we're doing for you guys. Another thing, we're part of a community of design here in Miami. It's not only us. So there's several other groups. Feel free to reach or check this. I know that we have Sarah from Fluxia. There you go. Hey, Sarah. So just Sarah has an awesome newsletter that you're free to join. Sarah, I don't know, you want to say something about your newsletter, how people can reach out?
They can definitely join the Slack channel. It ebbs and flows in terms of how active it is, but if you're looking for jobs, there's a job board. If you want to share your portfolio and get feedback, you can do that there. And people are always watching there too. So I will say there's like a lot of creepers. I see the stats, and so I know that there's a lot of recruiters that look there. There's a lot of hiring managers that look there. So the more active you are, the better, because people will see your stuff and they're what you're, that's what you think about when you need to hire someone.
Thank you, Sarah. So there you go. So feel free to join the Slack group, share your portfolio or ask for advice. There are some people that usually post jobs as well, so maybe it can be a good lead if you're looking for a job. Then Fluxia and IXDA, there are other two groups that they do events. So feel free to check those out. It's part of the community as well. It's not just us. So having said that, next. And well, Jackie, go ahead.
Yes, so happy that I'm here to present my former colleague, Melany. Fun fact, I did get my job via Fluxia.
Oh, I love that.
So I believe that Melany actually, she posted, back then she was working for GE, she posted that she was hiring, I reached out, said, hey Melany, remember me? And she's like, oh, that's awesome, send me your resume and I'll submit it and let's see what happens. So thank you again. Thank you, Sarah, first of all, for Fluxia. Thank you so much, Melany, and I'm super happy that I'm here to present her. So Melany is an OG as well. She's been in this space, just like Sarah, for many, many years. Super happy to have her here because she was one of my mentors, right? So originally from Colombia, like I said, we met at GE. She eventually moved on to work at 15Five. Mm-hmm. And she's very passionate about design. I can tell you that from a first experience working with her for a couple of months before she moved on, like I said. She worked for so many industries. I remember back then she used to work for hospitality, fintech. Wow, you're gonna be able to see her travel tourism. But anyway, super happy to see her here. She's done a lot of things. I think she's a generalist. She knows a little bit of everything. Super happy to have her here. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let Melany present now. So thank you so much, guys, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, you need to get used to getting people to talk about you, right? Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to all of you for joining. It's Monday, right after the weekend. There's so much happening around the world. So for you to choose to come here to listen to me talk, thank you for that, because it shows that you're putting yourself first. And hopefully we make this time worth it. Hopefully you learn something new. I want to learn something from you all. And I'd love for you guys to make connections, at least one new person that you meet today. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how to make first impressions worth it in your business, your app, your service. So this is about onboarding. And before I go into that, I want to do a quick intro. Yes. Okay, so as Jackie said, I am a product design lead at 15Five. 15Five is a performance management tool within the HR tech space. It's, how many of you are familiar with UKG, Workday? So this is a competitor of that, mostly focused on making sure that employees and managers are happy and productive at their work. And at 15.5, I'm currently working on scale and growth, which is why I chose the topic of talking about onboarding. So one thing that I'm passionate about is making sure that design has a huge human element. I believe that 10% is technology and the rest is human psychology, human behavior, and making sure that we advocate as designers for the users at all times. So another background from what Jackie mentioned is that I have played many hats as a UX designer. I started off in advertising and self-taught through many different industries. I was lucky to be in the forefront where these corporations had to innovate in order to survive. And I would just happen to be in that space where I was able to learn UX design in the process. So from all these different industries, I've been able to adapt and learn and continue to add a little bit more of what I learned to each job. Currently I'm at 15.5, but I'm also an instructor at BrainStation, just like Beto and Jonathan. All right, so talking about onboarding is more because we think about onboarding as product tours or a warm welcome, but there's more to that in order for it to be a good business. We're going to be talking about a design myth of what onboarding is and what it isn't, why it's important, and also some 5 best practices that I think are important for us to consider when we're designing. All right, so I want to see a raise of hands as designers. How many of you feel guilty for not having a clean UI design when you have to use tooltips or pop-ups? Yes. I'm in the school that they say that if I have to add a tooltip is because I didn't explain something right, or it's a Band-Aid to talk about what the business is supposed to do, where the product should speak for itself. And that's true in many cases. But when we think about first-time customers or first-time users, many products do a very poor job in guiding users so they could, by themselves, learn the value of what the product is supposed to do for them. And so for onboarding, we need to be more flexible and know that there's a critical level of UX that has to do with the education and the guiding piece. Because guiding users into the product is actually a really good UX practice, but also a very important business metric. Because when a user is confident in how to use a product, then that means they're going to stay. And if they don't, they leave, and that business problem is churn and retention. How many of you are familiar with churn or what retention is? Yeah, okay. So not only is it good for design, but it's also good for the bottom line business. Thank you. All right, so this is a pretty interesting statistic. So it says around 80% of people who log in or download an app stop using it after 14 days. And there's an average of 5 days where they uninstall it. So if you think about that time frame, that's a very critical time frame where engineers, designers, and the business really need to find compelling ways to make sure that they stay competitive and make sure that their users stay. When we think about the products or services that we work for, we do campaigns, we introduce new features, but if they weren't captured at the beginning, then we lose them. So what is onboarding? So onboarding is a sequence of interactions to guide users to find the value of a product throughout the product's life cycle. And I wanted to mention the highlight here is life cycle. So many people think that onboarding is just at the beginning of the process, but it's also continuous life cycle, a continuous onboarding, because we're always learning about new releases, new features that the product is having throughout the year. And so why should we care? We should care because we need to help users find what they want out of the product and feel and make sure that they're confident and trust the brand so that they could stay and be adopted and activated for the long run. Because when we think about the effort that we take when we download an app or sign up to a service, we expect that this service or application is going to provide some sort of benefit to our life. And by the time we start opening it and using it, we want to be rewarded for that faith that we had in this product. And if we're not convinced, then we go. And if we leave, we're not likely to come back. So this is really important for us to consider the beginning steps of welcoming a user onto our product. Okay, so this is a flywheel that's called the product-led growth flywheel. And basically it talks about the different phases of the journey. So we start off with strangers. When someone is a stranger to the application or the service, is because they don't know much about it. They're a little skeptical. They're trying to understand if this is worth my money or my time. And then they start becoming explorers. Explorers is where they want to identify the value, that aha moment, to see if it's worth them staying. Throughout the onboarding process, then they become beginners. That's when they already know what the product does, but they're still encouraged to keep learning and how to use the app and how to make sure that it's worth their time. Once they become beginners, then they start developing habits. And this is when we become regulars to a service or an app that we use. And when we become regulars, then we end up really liking the workflow or whatever it is that this service is offering, to then become champions and advocate and share it to other people to use. And so this is a really good framework to reference, because different tactics and strategies can apply for each phase of this process. And so now I'm going to talk about 5 just best practices. There's so many, and all of them build up on each other. And one is, this is called deferred account creation. So basically it's saying, let's not ask so many questions up front. Let's give them a little bit of what this app is about. And Duolingo does a really good job about it. So instead of asking email, how about we make sure that we give them the value, and then they'll start experiencing it on their own so they could then sign up. There's also a misconception that says that sign-ups equals engaged customers, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes if we want to capture people by signing up and then they leave, then that kind of skews the data. So just giving them enough information, enough value at the beginning, then we'll realize if the user is actually worth staying, and that actually makes a good match for the persona. So yeah, so this is an example of gradual engagement. So Duolingo starts you off as you're doing the registration, but at the same time, you're kind of taking the course, and you're already putting time and effort in understanding what this product does. You also start interacting with the different features, and slowly you start gaining more confidence and most likely come back to use it. All right, so next we're gonna start off on the frame where it says, where are we? We are beginners, or we're explorers. And the other best practice is the product tour. And I think product tours, we're mostly familiar with that, but I wanted to focus on the product tour to be contextual based on who the person is, and also narrowing down to the right information that they need at that time. So when users start going into your service or your product, there's so many features that they can interact with. And by reducing that noise and just focusing on the interactions that gives the user control of what they need to do, then it gives them more of a chance for them to explore on their own. So an example here I have on the next slide is Slack. So Slack does a really good job at walking you through the product, but also giving you a chance to interact with it at the same time. So from the onset, you start understanding how to create your own channel, and they even take advantage of empty states to have a purpose and a moment of guidance so that you could start creating your first message. And this builds up on another best practice that's in the next slide, which is progressive completion. And that gives you a sense of where you are in the process without throwing everything at once. So this is important because it starts anticipating things before the user knows it. So as a designer, this is where we really need to understand how to be proactive, what elements can we automate, and where can we start little by little giving them easy wins so they could feel that they're part of the process. So LinkedIn does also a really good job. LinkedIn has had so many variations of onboarding, and that's because they're actually really learning from the users and all the different paths that they take to see how they could start improving it. So as you see it in LinkedIn, you have your profile, and it starts telling you where you are or what else you could access depending on what more you add to that profile. And it starts automating different steps, being proactive of like connecting the people that you want to make, what you want to connect with. And The most important critical part with progressive completion is that it builds the bridge between marketing, content strategy, and design. So we hear a lot about the marketing, the brand, and the tone, but this is kind of those memes that you've seen as like reality versus, or expectation versus reality. Branding, marketing, they have a lot of money. They sell the product, the service, the app really well, but when it comes to the app, there's a disconnect. And when it comes to onboarding, this is the bridge where you can connect with the content strategy and have targeted messages at the right time so we could continue the conversation of marketing while explaining the benefit of the product. And the fourth one is lead with action. So this is, as we all know, some people learn better by doing. So this is where we could have an opportunity to create an easy win at the beginning so they could have more inclination to come back. So an example of that, I believe I put, was Airbnb. So the designers of Airbnb focused specifically on the action that requires a person to feel committed into planning their trip. So without signing up, they could start exploring the cities, adding the check-in and the check-outs of their dates, their destination, and that gives them a higher chance of wanting to come back and use the app. And then the last one I have here is make it repeatable and an ownership. There is a psychological, I think, theory, and it's called the endowment effect. Basically what it says is that when you own something, you feel that it's valuable. And how can we make people feel like they're part and owner, their own ownership of onboarding is by giving them a chance to feel committed to the progress that they're doing as they're doing their onboarding experience. So a few examples of that, and this could happen at many different times, is through checklists. So checklists, if you do a Post-it note or you have an agenda and you do a checklist, there's a dopamine effect as soon as you start crossing out something and you start wanting to continue and finish. We also forget that in onboarding, we always talk about exiting out, skipping, going back and forth. We always need something optional, but we never think about the value that a user has when they want to come back and relearn. Because when they go through these onboarding experiences, sometimes they skip through it, but they might miss a tip or a hack, and having access for them to come back and learn is very important. And also that moment where you realize that you got the value might be different for many different businesses. So this is an example of one where you're gradually learning, but maybe in another app, you learn through a longer process instead of just at the beginning. And so as a bonus best practice, and I think it's obvious, but I feel like it's important to state, is that continuous onboarding also requires continuous discovery. Because as people, we evolve in our preferences, in what we want to configure in our application or service. And it's important that we always learn from each persona and find the right size experience for their onboarding process. When we encourage someone to join an app and they're an admin, their onboarding experience might be different from an end user. And so understanding what that is very important. And right now, we have so much data that we need to be using it and leveraging it so that we can know what we should be serving our users from what they expect to do, when to do it, where to do it, and closer we get, we not only activate them from being an explorer, but end up becoming an advocate and continuously come back to your service or your app. Nice. So I want to close off with this statistic, and basically it's saying that if you intentionally have a curated experience, 50% will come back. And if we remember at the beginning, we saw that an average of 5 days people drop off. So it is important to spend some resources, some time to learn about who your users are, at what point in the journey they're in, so they could have a good onboarding experience, but also think about onboarding as a continuous. If we're users of, let's say, any app that we take or use, and they introduce a new feature, the new feature's introduction and guidance will be different from a person who's already used the app versus someone who's coming in for the first time. So we need to think about those differences. Nice, so some takeaways here. So yes, purposely creating an experience is not only good for the short term, but good for the long term. Making sure that we guide people directly to the right interaction and the action necessary for them to see value is very important. We have more data than ever, so there's no excuse for us not to use it. We need to learn where is the drop-off of our initial experience. How can we tweak and create a new journey so that more people end up staying in the app or encouraging people to invite someone else. And gaining value is not just at the beginning, but it's also a continuous journey throughout the product's experience or the product's journey. And I thought this was a pretty cool formula. It basically shows you the user's expectation minus the product's reality equals user satisfaction. So the expectation and the reality, unfortunately, is not always the same, but the closer we get to that, the higher user satisfaction we have. And that's not only good for UX, but it's good for the business. Thank you. So I'm going to open up for questions. Please.